yesterday as they were pushed all the way to Game 5 by Gambit Esports InFinity. They could look to do the same thing today, as G2 Esports has, ever since their inception, always made it to the World's group stage. Could that change today? We also get to see G2 Esports International Best of 5, the praise, the fame, G2 Best of 5. Oh, such a great team. Obviously a slightly different iteration of the team, but already the bans coming through thick and fast. No Urgot and Aatrox ban, which means one of them will be available, which means Wonder probably going to get his hands on it.
Olaf, though, being taken away. I like that they're trying to limit Jankos' pool. They've accepted that Wonder is going to get his choice of top-tier carries in the top lane, and no surprise to see Relic take the opposite end of that matchup. That is the Aatrox for Wonder, the Urgot in the hands of Relic, unless they do want to swap that pick to the mid lane.
What's quite interesting is that the last time we saw both these champions open for G2, they prioritized the Urgot. Often considered a bit more of a favorable matchup because he does have the range advantage and slightly stronger wave clear in terms of the early push, but very surprising from G2. Clear their priorities have changed. Seeing Wonder back onto the Aatrox will be exciting to see. Considered a very strong top laner in Europe at the very least, whereas InFinity, they've actually locked themselves in a very early Alistar. No real surprise there.
I like having the engage in the hands of Arce, you know, kind of the leaders of this team, giving him the tools to make plays happen. And Wadid back on Tahm Kench's duty alongside a scaling pick for Hjarnan. Now, this is going to be a bit of a question mark as we head in the series. What kind of form is Hjarnan in as well? Is he the kind of player right now for G2 that can bear the burden of being a hyper carry?
Well, now, he certainly looked good in their tiebreaker game versus Supermassive, but obviously there were many concerns given his solo queue record on the champion. But overall, he's had a fairly decent performance, and we'll see how he handles it as InFinity actually choose to prioritize their jungler. Now they can look to continue to pinch that pool. They can throw more target bans out towards Jankos. I'd love to see the Talia taken away from him, as I do feel that it is a very strong pick, especially in Jankos' hands.
And of course, on the side of G2, it feels like we have just a lot of strong picks generally, but so much control on the side of InFinity Esports. The sheer amount of tankiness and CC already built into that lineup is impressive. The Camille, though, going to be the first pick banned away, so trying to limit some of either Jankos' early playmaking or the potential for the Aatrox to get flexed mid lane. Once again, not something we've seen a ton of, but Aurelia also being taken off, so a bit of a focus on Kodapako. Did have a monster performance up against EDG. Do not want to give him any semblance of that kind of team fight carry.
Interesting. So the Talia has been left up and available. Varus is still up. Xayah, Renyu's most comfortable AD carry, is also free for the taking, and InFinity, I feel they have a lot of options available right now in the draft. They've already got a solid frontline with Alistar, Gragas, Urgot. They just need that damage to come through, and they will be able to get the counter pick for Kodapako. And when we think back to his performance on the second day of, or day 3, whatever day it was, of the group stages.
His second day of games.
Yes, his second day of games. He looked fantastic. His Aurelia was amazing versus EDG, especially in the team fights. And his LeBlanc was very impressive too. So the fact that they'll be able to get that counter pick is very important for their mid lane.
Debating, though, on this pick, what they want to lock in here. Which role do they want to show? You have to assume the Kodapako is going to save the last pick, but InFinity Esports really taking their time. Will decide to match scaling with scaling. Tristana Alistar, a lane that we have seen a ton of here at the World's Plans in 2018. Not always the most successful, but has had some mixed results. Now, interestingly enough, Perk's going to snap pick up that Syndra, feeling comfortable and confident on that champion. And how does G2 round out this composition? It seems like we're looking for a jungler here. Skarner, the choice for Jankos.
Okay, fairly solid. G2 going with kind of the bread and butter of what they often do, slightly kind of bruiser carry top side of the map for Wonder. You have Skarner that can look to play around both mid and top. You have a lot of ganking opportunities for Perks and Wonder. And they also have the scaling defensive option down towards the bot side of the map. Tahm Kench was something that the team often drafted. It was a big comfort pick for Wonder, 13 games during the regular season. And I think that it makes a lot of sense. Interestingly, okay, we're going to see the Urgot in the mid lane, and Poppy's actually going to be sent up top. So we could also see the Gragas up. Okay, Poppy up top.
I think it's Poppy up top, Gragas the jungle, Urgot mid, but we wait 20 seconds, of course, before anything can get swapped around. This is the first, interestingly enough, Skarner game coming in for Jankos, and he's going up against an incredibly tanky opposing lineup. I see one major damage source, Betty. You gotta hope maybe the Gragas builds Runic Echoes, but it seems like Renyu, it seems like he didn't have a choice. The team said, here are your carry pants. We'll do our best to protect you. But that is a lot of pressure on a single player.
Yeah, and it does mean that InFinity, I think what they're relying on is the fact that G2 don't often pressure through the bot side of the map, which means that Renyu will be able to freely scale up on the Tristana, and when it comes to front to back, the great thing about Tristana is the extra range that you have over a Kai'Sa means that because you have a giant body wall in front of you, you'll be able to much easier get through the front line of G2 than a Kai'Sa would necessarily be able to. So I think they're going much more towards the scaling side, but you've got to be careful of that. While we have seen some solid team fighting from this InFinity squad, G2 love to play through the early game, and they have so many early game options. They have pressure in mid with the Syndra. The stun is so easy to land on the big, beefy Urgot that doesn't have the best of mobility. You also pair that up with a Skarner at level 6, huge amount of kill pressure, and Aatrox in the top lane. Against the Poppy, yes, the W will be able to interrupt the dashes from the Aatrox, but he still throws out a lot of damage, and it is in the hands of the all-pro top laner for Europe in Wunder.
A lot of pressure on Wunder. We've seen this guy monster people. We've seen him get shut down immediately after. You think about Rift Rivals, he was clutch for Europe. But when he came back to the region, he did get destroyed in the top lane. Which Wunder will we see today? Which form of both of these teams? That is the #1 question on our minds as we head into our first game in this series. Vedius. So many tanks on one lineup. We got G2 with the Skarner on the other. Skarner, not a champion we've seen yet in the hands of Jankos. How are you feeling about this for Jankos? Is this the right choice for this guy? Game 1 now in front of us. G2 on the blue side, InFinity on the red. Let's take a look at that jungle matchup.
Yeah, I think that it's a very solid pick for Jankos, largely because it provides you with strong early skirmishing. It does give you the ability to be proactive around the level 6 mark, and I just think that in terms of how G2 likes to play the game, Skarner is a very good pick. We saw in Europe, it was one of the most contested picks throughout the playoffs. A lot of junglers really valued the early playmaking power that it does have. And against the Gragas, I think that it's a perfectly fine matchup. It can be difficult to get on top of that Tristana later on into the game. We're going to have to see how things transition, because remember, G2 don't have a huge amount of engage in their composition. You compare that to InFinity, who have Poppy flank, they have the Alistar. You can also engage with a Righteous Glory on the Urgot as well. They have a lot of ways to start team fights, but their early game isn't the strongest. So InFinity need to slow G2 down. They don't want to allow them to build the early game leads that they often like to get for themselves, and then get to that mid to late game portion where they can look to force fights, which is how they were able to upset EDG.
And the good news, I think, for both these teams is there's a pretty clear battleground. Both bot lanes seem like, hey, we're going to scale, we're going to play a little bit safer. Tristana versus Kai'Sa, not always where we expect action. But the top side, the Poppy versus the Aatrox, the Syndra versus the Urgot in the mid lane, feels like big points where either team could look to exploit and try to get a laning advantage.
I agree. And I can already see that Solid Snake taking advantage of his top laner by asking for a pull on the red side. This does mean that Wunder will already have priority on this lane, and that's a good start for Wunder. Relic on the Poppy, you know, as we said, yes, later on into the game, your tankiness will definitely allow you to hold out against the Aatrox. But the problem is, in terms of the laning phase, you're just going to get bullied. Going for the Comet as well for Wunder. The moment he hits level 6, a dive towards the top side of the map is very real, as we see they're an engaging bot.
We talked about this potentially being a bit of a slower lane phase, but it looks like Arce is still willing to go in to fight for that level 2 to get a little bit of a pushing advantage here for the side of InFinity. Now Cotopaco laying down a little bit of vision in the jungle just to track, figure out where Jankos is going to be, where he's going to play. We will now see kind of the Urgot hover to that bottom side, stay away from that Skarner as much as possible. And Jankos may just be going for the Krug, but could potentially go for something aggressive here.
I think he's just looking to steal away the Krugs. I think that would make the most sense. Going for a dive this early on would be very risky. Especially with a minion wave just coming through. For the time being, it looks like that we actually see a bit of pressure from Solid Snake in the mid lane.
Gonna go in, immediately gonna get the cast down. Perks needs to find a way out of this one. Cotopaco. Patience from Perks though, burns both summoners but manages to walk away with his life. Very close to disaster there. Trading 2 flashes on the opposite side though.
Yeah, the fact that Perks walks away by getting both flashes out from InFinity means that that level 6 spike for Perks is going to be huge. I want to see Jankos come towards the mid lane, because you need to take advantage of the fact that InFinity went for a very early play to try and shut Perks down and were not able to pull off. The choice of heal really coming out clutch there for the side of G2.
Yeah, and yet Jankos, of course, a person we expect to match a lot of these early plays, and you know that if he doesn't make the most of that window, very easy for Solid Snake to come back to that lane as a Predator Gragas.
Very true.
Stun Perks, punish him for the lack of summoners. And when you look at the G2 lineup, Jankos is pretty much everything in the early game for snowballing this team ahead when the lanes are even, when they're not able to just solo generate advantages. The good news for G2, top lane very clearly in their favor, but Jankos, always a guy that we have to watch.
Yeah, you look at some of his stats across the board, and in terms of his jungle proximity, he doesn't have the highest, but then you look at some of the kills that he's been involved with in the early game, he's second in terms of kills plus assists, he is second in terms of kill participation.
Yeah, and let's look at that number, 94.7 kill participation at 15. Nobody dies on the map when Jankos is not there, except for that one guy. That's that 5.3%. But
that's
we don't talk about him.
Getting the solo kills, you know? But that just goes to show how efficient Jankos often is with his ganks. But so far, it's been Solid Snake who's been the more proactive player in this early stage of play. A couple of summoner spells were used, and when you compare them, actually, they're quite similar in terms of where the early leads come from. Because during the regular season for the LLN, Solid Snake was often the guy that would make things happen for InFinity. He was the person that would enable Kotopaco to be this big carry player in the mid lane. He was the guy that would often stop the enemy jungler from being so dominant. So now that he's on the Gragas, he doesn't quite have the same capabilities. And during the regular season, he played a lot of things like Nocturne and Camille and Olaf, the kind of champions that you'd expect from Jankos. So while he is on the Gragas, he's playing a little bit more of the utility role this time around, but even so, we've already seen him try to be proactive in this early game and try and get his laners ahead.
Laying down a decent amount of pressure, keeping Relic as safe as he can. Still a big struggle for the side of InFinity, going down 20 CS in the lane phase. You knew that lane matchup from the start, so opting into it, a very difficult choice for InFinity, but clearly a lot of faith in Relic that he can survive up against Wonder's Aatrox. Now see the TP's coming in on the top side. We're kind of just waiting to see that next play. Flash is still down for the jungler and mid laner on the side of InFinity. Traded, of course, for those summoners and perks. But it doesn't look like either team is looking to capitalize quite yet. Jankos, though, ready to make his presence known on that top side.
Relic should be able to spot this one out. He does have the ward. Solid Snake is in position to counter as well. Neither jungler sees the exact position of yet. But Wonder has hit level 6. Jankos, they should be looking for the dive.
Solid Snake moving forward, does have the level 5. Poppy will get here first. They want to go for it. Does manage to get the stun. Chain CC managing to come through. Jankos, though, trying to stun it up, trying to lock it up, using the smite to stay healthy. And Wonder not even batting an eyelid. A lot of confidence from Jankos.
Perks has roamed up towards the top side of the map as well. Level 6 for Wonder. G2 going for the dive.
Oh, Wonder's going to have the ultimate immediately going to pop it, trying to get a little bit of fear down on the minions. Relic now knocking him back, trying to make his way out of safety. Ulti comes in from Perks, and he's still there. Kotopaco moving in. Next, where's it going to go? Pulling him back, gonna burn that passive. Lock Wonder up under the tower. I don't think they got any follow-up here, though. Just forcing Kotopaco back. Getting a little bit aggressive. The knockups are connecting. Jankos still no level 6, though. Means this is just a lot of ultimates burned, but not a lot gained in the end.
So flashes both traded on either side. Arce now goes in the bot lane.
Stack 2, stack 3. He's gonna get pulled. He's gonna spit right under this tower. No ultimate for the Alistar, and that just means he's gonna die. First blood. Master Chef Tom Hench just serving up a kill there.
And it's Hjarnan and Wadid that find it. The bot lane that many have criticized throughout the play-in stages. They punish the over-aggression from Arce, and this is not the kind of early start that InFinity want. Remember, we said that by drafting the Tristana and the Alistar, they're basically saying to G2, you know what? We know you don't like to play around the bot side of the map. We know we can get through a safe laning phase, but they tried to force a play. And the thing about Alistar and Tatam Kench is the moment you go in, you're not getting out. You don't have those escape tools, which means that you can see how quickly we did. Can apply these stacks, can then drag you underneath the tower. The heal and the flash is not enough, and it gives Hjarnan, well, it gives Wadid the first blood.
And honestly, guys, you kind of just have to wonder what Arce was thinking there. That the creep wave was already crashing in, maybe just hoping to get a bit of damage down, force them back, deny a little bit of CS. But, you know, taking a risk there up against Wadid on that Tahm Kench did not pay off. First blood, luckily for him, goes in the hands of the Tahm Kench. Not the biggest threat. You do not want to snowball that Kai'Sa, but still conceding a decent amount of pressure. Good news is Renu still has the CS advantage, but can't afford to keep making missteps like that.
Exactly that, Dracos. And you know, while that was happening, we got to go back to the top lane play that happened as well. Remember that we talked about G2 wanting to play around the top side of the map. Very standard G2 play. Enable Wonder on these kind of carry top laners. But InFinity, they read it well. Good vision throughout the river allowed them to see the pathing of Jankos. And because Kotopaco had TP, he was able to respond in kind, even though Perks had arrived towards the top side of the map. Renu now
is going to get punted back. Does have to use the ultimate, though, as well, to knock Wadid away. And now we see the Gragas come to the bot side. Hjarnan and Wadid feeling confident. Solid Snake is right here. Hjarnan a lot of tools to get out with that ultimate available. Skarner in the area as well. If they want to make this happen, they're going to need to make it quick. Gragas is going in. He's going to get pulled back to the belly. Wadid, a little bit of time. There's the cast. Going to spin him back out, but Hjarnan makes it out before he goes down. Wadid now running. Grey Health ticking down. Here Comes the Urgot looking for the ultimate. Is going to be body blocked by Jankos. Beautiful block there in the end. Not quite enough on the cast. They want something so desperately. They finally get one. InFinity burning so much in that exchange.
And InFinity find a first kill and get themselves on the board. They're able to successfully punish Wadid with a really good use of the Gragas ultimate, and Cotopaco, with the pressure he generated in mid, has roamed down. And InFinity, they're looking to secure themselves the first tower of the game.
And now Wonder, though, left unattended on the top side. Relic's not going to have any of it, just knocks him away. InFinity looking for that tower first blood advantage. Losing out in farm across the lanes, but they are looking for those map objectives. And Relic doing what he can to stay safe. Perkz trying to line up that stun. Doesn't look like he's going to find it. There is a little bit more. The Aatrox stun finally connects. Too little too late, though. G2 not going to be able to get a tower back on the top side unless they hard commit here. And honestly, at the end of the day, CS sucks for InFinity right now. Difficult spot to be in, but they are making the most of it with these map plays.
Certainly are. InFinity, while still behind in gold because of the big CS lead that Wonder has built up in the top lane, they are closing the gap, and by getting this map control, it's a very big deal for them in terms of the early pressure. So you can see, after the early kill, G2 feel confident trying to make this play, and good use of the Gragas ultimate there from Solid Snake to just hold on to it until Wadid had burnt that flash. He then does get Hyun into safety, and you think at this point, oh, Wadid's guaranteed to die. He just barely walks away with his life, but then the range of Renyu is enough, but now we see another play.
Trying to make the play, does manage to interrupt it. Hjarnan now needs to get out to safety, but he's going to go down immediately. Wadid next on the menu, and InFinity are ripping apart this G2 bottom lane. Absolutely merciless.
And InFinity continue to punish the bot side of the map. Arce, yes, he made that one crucial mistake early on during the laning phase to give G2 first blood, but since then, InFinity have just constantly returned the pressure. They've been able to secure the bot tower, and the problem for Hyun and Wadid was they didn't realize that elsewhere on the map there was no pressure from G2. They couldn't trade anything for InFinity, having 4 members towards the bot side. Now Perkz, he has no HP or mana.
Oh, here comes the ultimate from Urgot. The heal already burned. Relic just wants to get a little bit of damage down, but the timer ticking out means that Perkz will walk to safety. Wonder on the way, are going to secure that one. Will they sacrifice any lives though? Arce on the way here. It's a 3v3. Perkz has been isolated out of the fight, just the 2, but Wonder, rather Wadid on the way, and Wonder just looks like he may get ripped up. Does manage to make it over the wall. Tom Kent's there to say no to that fun play for InFinity. But still, managing to walk out there with the Herald is a good boon for G2.
And we can see the difference with InFinity. You know, we talked a little bit about it. Day one, they said themselves they were jet lagged. The lack of practice really hurt them, but now, after a couple days in Korea, the fact that they've been able to scrim more, practice more, they're being really proactive on the map, and unfortunately for Wadid, he was just outside the bush. This allowed Solid Snake to see him. He's able to land the body slam, interrupt the escape, and then they secure themselves 2 quick kills. InFinity leading the kill score, leading in terms of gold. And so far, G2 have not been able to set up Wonder for success. They've successfully played through their bot lane. And InFinity, they're gearing up quite nicely towards that mid game, which is where they're relying on these team fights, this front line, their ability to engage. InFinity getting towards their win condition of setting up Renyu to be the big carry.
Absolutely. You have to respect the carry performance so far from Solid Snake to set up his bot lane for success. 100% kill participation so far from this Gragas player, and really exactly what you need coming into a best-of-5 series, knowing you can rely on your jungler to impact the lanes this way, even up against an opponent like Jankos. The gold still slightly in the favor of G2, but you gotta look where the gold is focused on the side of InFinity. Yes, CS deficits, but not on the Tristana, the major carry for the team. Has to be careful though. You can see Hjarnan Wadid waiting, ready to look for an engage. Relic, of course, still suffering in the lane phase, but with a bit more armor, is surviving much easier now.
You talked a little bit about it. Just look at the farm across the board. 131 on top of Perkz, 40 CS advantages. So big for the G2 mid laner. He's often the guy that comes up clutch for the team when things start to look a little dire. I do like the fact that InFinity invests so many resources into attacking the bot lane of G2, often considered the weaker part. But now they're utilizing the lead that they built up in bot and transitioning it to the rest of the map, sieging in mid. Perkz, he just spent all his mana getting the blue buff, and 2 members from G2 is not enough to wave clear. InFinity continue to look good.
Excellent map play coming from InFinity, Vedius. We look across, this just looks like outside of the CS, if you take that out of account, they are the better team performing right now in this early game. And it's good for G2, as you said, that they've got Perkz on that Syndra, and you have to hope that maybe he's the guy that can one-shot the Tristana a little later in the game, but Wonder wants to make a case for him to be the big carry. So he just cuts through Relic's health bar, and the Rift Herald will get utilized. Tristana trying to move up, but looks like InFinity do just have to sacrifice this tower that will cement G2 a gold lead here at the 13-minute mark.
So this is the thing for G2 at 1 item. to me, they still feel stronger because they have the Syndra and they have the Aatrox. And I think G2 are relying on that. And once those items have been completed, now that they've been able to take a tower off the board, they may look to be a little bit more proactive as we enter the mid-game state. InFinity, though, they just want to wait a little bit more. I like with what they've been able to do. By getting an early lead bot, transitioning it to mid, if they can get the outer tower up top as well, then they can just sit back and farm and scale, get to those 2-3 items, allow Kotopaco and Relic to be that tanky frontline to help protect Renu, who can then just melt anyone that gets anywhere near him. And you think about that. Wonder on this Aatrox, he's going to have to find a flank to get onto the backline. Perks, typically against tanks, Syndra doesn't have the same impact because, well, it's very easy to itemize magic resistance, right? So, and then for Yanin, if he wants to dive onto the backline, well, you're going to be diving into a Poppy, an Urgot, an Alistar. There's also the Tristana mobility as well. Like, team fighting, it's really difficult for G2 to go up against this, so InFinity, I feel really happy with how things are playing out for them so far.
It is a good look for this squad, for this lineup. Because remember, we just kind of expected them to sit back and wait, and they have been so much more active than that Vedius here in the early game. They're not just denying G2's plays in the early game, they're making their own, they're breaking down these towers, and Tristana, of course, you're waiting for that 3-item carry, but she's still fantastic at sieging, and InFinity are using it well. G2, though, still with a lot of individual advantages. Those first item spikes you talked about, that's the Looted Zeko and the Black Cleaver, are now completed, and G2 are looking to flex a little bit, moving into that mid lane, ready to contest here on these objectives.
But where will they fight? Because there's no neutral objectives on the map, and InFinity are grouping up towards the top side. G2 may look to defend. Remember, they have the Tahm Kench ultimate to set up for a potential flank behind InFinity, and Wonder does have his teleport as well.
Remember's here, Tristana getting a lot of damage down. Don't think Renu can commit, though. To back out, stun does not quite connect, and Jankos, level 9 on the Skarner, have yet to see him really use the ultimate, and you're kind of waiting for that impact from him. He doesn't have the Olaf or the Talia, some of those comfort picks. Not quite as much impact here in the early game. Of course, on the bottom side, Relic remains significantly behind in this 1v1 matchup, but still at least managing to push out the waves up against Aatrox when he's left unattended.
Also note that for G2, they're constantly staying as a group-man, 4-man unit, sorry. And the fact that InFinity are able to play on all 3 lanes very safely is giving them so much more map control and also better allocation of resources. Kotopaco now level 11, Relic level 11 as well, Renu level 10. And you can see, just look at the difference between the 2 AD carries. The gold is where it needs to be on InFinity, which is inside that Tristana. The Storm Raider has been completed. He's probably working towards the rapid fire cannon, and he's getting towards that point where Tristana can be the big carry. So I feel like this early game has gone exactly the way in which InFinity wanted. They have stopped G2 getting the early game lead that they often like to get. And while Wonder and Perks have performed well during the laning phase, that is not enough of a lead right now to say that they can go into these team fights feeling confident.
Absolutely not. And Vedius, I think we look at the compositions, and you can see maybe while G2 hasn't exactly been set up to make a ton of plays, Skarner is a great initiation tool, but when you're looking to engage on a Tristana, someone who can already knock you back, and she's constantly moving with a Gragas and an Alistar, that's going to be it, though. Big use of the ulti there, not quite enough, does manage to force out the heal.
Only 4 balls there from Perks. Well, it definitely does hurt. Not quite one-shot potential, but he needed to get that combo in quickly. I thought he would throw out the W as well. That might have been enough. Still, they get the heal out from Renu, and now because of that big chunk damage, they have priority over the river. But this could be the opportunity the InFinity use to try and force a fight.
Urgot with the TP immediately going to come in. Aatrox on his way in as well. Could look to catch Wonder before the fight even starts, but instead they're going to set their sights on the Dragon. That is the second mountain of the game. Taking this would make Baron a significantly easier objective, as well as help InFinity continue with the sieges. For now, just a battle of poke. Wonder on the flank, but they do have eyes on him.
Also looking at sideways already. Yanin going towards the bot, trying to get the push so that that big minion wave hits the tower and doesn't go anywhere. InFinity now trying to force the Drake, have started it off.
Perks, of course, with the low mana bar puts him in a difficult position. The ulti just used as well, so InFinity know that they have the team fight advantage and are going to grab yet another objective. 2 dragons and 3 towers. Yes, G2 got the Herald in 1 tower, but InFinity significantly ahead by that margin. Sadly, gold still slightly in the favor of G2, but really it's G2 firing back in their individual lanes, but not able to bring it together as a team.
Still a very close game, and it could still very well swing either way. I felt like that if there was a fight there, that would have decided a lot. And G2 felt that they weren't in a position to contest it, especially with InFinity clumped up in the kind of formation that they want to be using throughout the rest of this game, which is bundle up around the Tristana, allow them to be this big damage dealer, and Wonder, he saw no clear line onto the AD carry or the backline. And as you mentioned, Perks being low on mana as well, they didn't want to run the risk, and someone needed to catch that top wave. So G2 disengaged, InFinity secured the second Matt and Drake of the game. Still slightly behind in gold though, as you mentioned, and we're approaching that 20-minute mark. The Baron is going to be spawning, and I don't think either team is going to rush towards it, but vision control around that objective is very important at this stage.
And really just not a ton of damage on the InFinity lineup, but with double mount, things do get a little bit easier, and you know that puts this thought in the back of G2's head. We always have to keep vision on that Baron pit now, because a team that may have struggled to do it previously is now much more, finds it much more accessible to make their way into that pit.
You know, it was interesting because in that interview with Relic, he said that of all the teams that they would be most comfortable fighting against, it was G2 or Supermassive, because they felt that stylistically they matched up quite well. And you can kind of see in how this first game has played out that Solid Snake is a proactive early game jungler, and he felt confident that he would be able to keep Jankos in his place. He would be able to control the early game playmaking that he loves to try and force, especially with the Olaf ban that we saw in the draft. And now they're getting to this team fight state where they feel they are the stronger team fighters, and arguably that has been one of G2's biggest weaknesses during the second half and later stages of the season. So things playing pretty well for them so far. But they now need to execute upon those team fights, and that is a whole different story when you actually have to put it into practice.
And this is a clash of styles we so rarely get in League of Legends these days, where you have individual talent on the team that is performing better in the lane in the case of G2, but teamwork as a whole now looking great for InFinity. TP's coming in on the backside, though. G2 see their window to fight. They want to get it started. Perks, though, not connected to the stun, but there's the ulti coming in from Jankos. But still, Renyu remains untouched on the backside. Only 2 items, not a ton of damage coming in, but Arce tanking everything. Wonder right into the back line. Wants to fire home, but now the ulti is going to be used up. He's going to resurrect right here, backing off on the opposite side. That is 2 for 0 in the favor of G2, finally making their mark on the map.
But InFinity still secure themselves a tower. The question is, what can G2 get off the back of this fight? They needed to force it, they land the stun.
Kotapaku still very tanky. Renyu still with enough wave clear to keep this one going, but Perkz stepping so far forward, ready to commit here. Be pulled right out by Wadid, knows that he has his teammates to keep him safe, but now Tristana on the hunt. Debating whether or not they want to go in. Perkz so incredibly low, but you have to wonder if they're just baiting for something else. Respawn timer's coming up for Solid Snake, though. InFinity going to take control of mid lane once again. G2 have yet to back.
And this is the big thing, because while it was a good fight for G2, Wonder gets his first kill of the game. He will actually spot out Relic, but won't commit to the fight. They don't actually convert it into any objectives, which means that InFinity overall come out on top, because they're now 4 towers up onto G2. And you can see in this situation, I love the teleport from Wonder, really gets him from behind, which means that he can dive onto the backline. The ulti goes onto Solid Snake, and while it's not really the target that you want, it does mean that Renyu is forced out from the fight. He can only really hit onto Wonder, who still has his ulti passive up, and that means that Hyanan on the backline can slowly work his way through whoever is in front of them. They eventually kill off the Alistar, but again, they don't translate it into any big objectives. Now, the impressive thing here for G2 is they're still ahead in gold, even though they are down 3 towers, and that just really goes to show how strong of individuals both Wonder and Perkz are when it comes to the laning phase and the advantages that they built.
When you just look at that 50, the very clear 50 CS lead and growing in the mid lane. 2 items plus the Skarner tax in the hands of Renyu. Not going to be quite enough if Perkz gets all these stacks on the Spellbinder. Has to hope that he can stay alive, the team can peel from him. He does not have the luxury of a Tahm Kench like Hjarnan or Perkz do. Much less tools to protect him. And Gragas, interestingly enough, we were wondering where was all the damage going to come from, Vedius? Well, Solid Snake has decided, I'm the carry now.
Yeah. Something that we do see a lot more from Gragas is these days, the full AP option with the Predator definitely does offer a little bit more of a boost. And of course, because InFinity still have the Urgot and the Poppy, they still have this tanky front line that they can rely on. So I'm fine with the build, and you can already see the Skarner attacks coming through as well. The double QSSs have been completed, so that's going to make it even harder for Jankos to dive onto the back line and really threaten Renyu. And now with Wonder's TP unavailable, G2 have to be very careful trying to force a fight right now.
Kotapaku, though, standing on a bit of vision is unfortunate. Just going to throw out the Void Seeker to let him know. G2 on the back foot, as you mentioned. Gold's still even, but very much losing in pressure. The tower is not going to help take care of some of those waves and making it a lot more difficult for them to step forward. Double mount means this is actually going down at a decent pace for almost no damage threats being there. Buying a bit of time, though, as G2 start to posture. Perkz has to play smart here, though. Has to be careful, but he has Wadid waiting right there. And Wonder on the way. InFinity, this is the battlefield. They've seen their gauntlet set, but Solid Snake immediately loses half of his health. Kotopaco now going to be pulled to the team, but the QSS is there. They want to buy him back. Now trying to disengage from Relic. Where's the hammer going to go? They're just going to hold on to it for now. The team on the retreat. G2 looking for an option here. Perkz with a nice land on the stun, but nothing else going to come from it. G2 with control over the pit. Kotopaco, though, debating, waiting on a bit of time. G2, I don't think they're going to go for this Baron, but they will set up their control over it.
And this time, InFinity were the ones to try and force the fight. But really good play from Perkz, just throwing all his CC down onto the squishy member in Solid Snake. Nearly solo kills him, but at the very least forces InFinity back. And as you rightly said, Dracos, full control of the ribbon now goes towards G2. No one dies, no objectives are lost. The game's still very close in terms of the gold. But the game gets longer and longer. We talked about how this is going to get harder and harder for G2 in terms of the ability to teamfight. It's not to say they have no scaling options. With the recent buffs, Aatrox is slightly stronger in the late game, and Kjarnan is on the best late game AD carry in the game. But short range on the AD carry. It is difficult for Wonder to dive onto the back line as well.
Here comes the play. Hex flash over the wall. They're looking to make something happen. Perkz only going to be able to disengage one target. That's the knockup. He's going to move forward with Deed, though. Has he been isolated? Has he been left out? Kotopaco in with the Righteous Glory. Wants to flip Perkz right back into the team, and that is all but dead. But with Deed once again saving the day with the Tahm Kench ultimate. You got to love the use of that interaction.
Did ends up saving. I'm fascinated how he did that, because the cooldown should be really, I guess he has maxed it out.
No, it's the ult. He used the buffer.
Did he use his ulti?
Yeah, he did use his ulti. It didn't complete, though. He used
oh, okay.
Call that one the Kasing.
The Kasave, you mean?
Kasave.
Oh, well played there from Wadid. Is able to walk his mid lane around and doesn't even cost a flash of Perkz either. Kotopaco did use both of his summoner spells, but now both teams grouping up in the mid lane, a place we often see G2.
They're ready to fight, laying down the gauntlet. They know a lot of cooldowns have been burned on the side of InFinity. Fear Beyond Death still available for the Urgot, but G2 know that they have the pressure advantage, and Renu forced to back off a little bit here. G2 finally getting some objectives of their own, solidifying a gold lead, but now Gragas in the middle of the team trying to knock out Kjarnan. Where's the Urgot ulti gonna go? Arce trying to keep Perkz off the back line. Renu taking a huge chunk from the Aatrox. Wonder wants to delete that carry, but the tankier members are still alive. Resurrection coming in. Solid Snake's cooldowns up shortly. Buying a bit more time with the Tahm Kench to try to get to safety. So many low health bars. Wadid can only save one, and InFinity now pushing up the mid lane, looking for a little bit more.
And InFinity come out ahead in this team fight. They're gonna be able to push out the mid wave, and they can make a beeline towards the Drake. They don't need to push any further. They're fine just stalling this game out longer and longer, allowing Tristana to get to those 3 items. You saw with Kjarnan getting chunked out right from the get-go, it was so difficult for him to really get involved in the fight.
We have to remember why we respect InFinity so much when it comes to the late game overall. We look back at their series against EDG where they had such a massive gold deficit, but when it came to team fighting proficiency, InFinity was on point. Talk about that more in a second as we see this one play out.
So there's the initial consume, the W from Wadid. Then he flashes over the wall, uses the ulti, as you said, in the air. Jumps out. Because he gets interrupted, it doesn't end up putting the ulti on cooldown. I thought originally that it would put the ult on cooldown, but there we go. Is able to save him on that one.
That seems very strong.
Very strong. But as you were talking about, the last time that InFinity met EDG, there was a 7,500 goal lead in favor of EDG, and then a single team fight in the mid turned into a Baron, turned into another team fight win, but Kotopaco.
Ooh. Okay. Right, the Ghost and the Zonya's there just to make it out to safety. G2 gonna walk away with a small cooldown. And still, Vedius, if you're an InFinity fan, you're like, this is it. We're making it to the late game. This is what our team wants to do. But G2 still have the gold lead. G2 still have the Syndra and the Kai'Sa. They can just delete a single member if they're given the opportunity to do so. A lot still comes down to late game execution. And we have yet to see these two teams go toe-to-toe. So in terms of who is actually better in the late game team fights, we're going to answer that question later. For now, the name of the game is Baron Control, pushing up the mid lane, laying down a little bit of vision, clearing the enemy team's vision, and then the other team gets the chance to do so. Very much a rinse and repeat, and we're looking for that breaking point. Who's going to misstep? Who's going to make the first mistake and leave an opening for the opposite side?
Wonder has successfully Flame Horizon Relic, currently sitting at just underneath 300 CS, and Relic actually doing a pretty good job in that 1v1 with only a Sunfire Cape and the Sheen completed, even though he has a full item over him, showing the late game tankiness of Poppy. And you can also see, thank you observers, slipping over to the gold. 4,000 gold in favor of Wonder. That is where this gold lead is coming from. Yet in terms of the fights, that doesn't matter if Wonder cannot get onto those crucial damage dealers in Renu.
You can see the pit is all but dark for G2. They have the single ward that is, I believe, disabled by a control ward. Perkz now trying to find the engage, forcing the flash out from Renu is massive. G2 taking priority in the mid lane. Wonder's still far behind, but Poppy's on the bottom side. Perkz just looking for a pick.
Ooh, good consume there from Wadid.
Arce, where's he going to go? Hex flash on the wall. He's looking for a little bit more. Wants to get it. Headbutt pulverized. Not going to connect. Nice disengage from Perkz. Relic on the backside, but Wonder's going to stop him from making it in the team fight. The Aatrox has been left behind. Kiana goes in on the tank. He looks for a good option. Renu now leaping forward, though. Wadid, the one left in the Zonya's now trying to back off. G2 fighting as a strong 4. The front line coming through, and Aatrox is cutting people down. Hjarnen's there to pick up the kills, and Arce is now running. Unbreakable about to run out. Perkz going to grab that one. No, in the end, all 3 kills going to Hjarnen. G2 just dominating in these exchanges. InFinity cannot find a single kill.
And as you rightly said, G2 is the team that comes out on top in the team fight. InFinity, they just overcommit a little too much. Relic with the TP flank initially looks good, but it is Wonder who interrupts it. Now G2 are making their way towards the Baron. Solid Snake still lives.
G2 so many low health bars. They see the nightmare situation in their head. They see that Tristana Penta, the resets coming left and right. They're not going to risk anything, not risk giving that Baron up. But you look at this one more time, and just well played, especially from Perkz.
Yeah, a lot of credit needs to go to Wadid and Perkz. Number 1, keeping Perkz alive. But number 2, the interrupt that comes through as Arce tries to dive into 4 members. And Hjarnen is still alive as well, so he then joins up with Jankos to kill the initial tank. With Relic out of the picture, this is now a 5 versus 4, so this just becomes a front to back. And Wonder, he doesn't need to focus on the backline. He's just going to kill Cotopaco, and Renu doesn't get the ideal scenario. It is not a matter of InFinity just kind of standing still and weathering the storm of G2. It is actually InFinity running away from G2 as they slowly chase them down and find kill after kill. Fortunately for InFinity, G2 don't turn it into a Baron, but they do extend the goal lead even further. And now Hjarnen, he's at 4 items. So Kai'Sa is so much scarier at this point in the game.
This AP Kai'Sa build just rips through tanky champions as well. And you don't see a single adaptive helm being completed on the opposite side, so that Plasma is just going to shred people. And you got to respect Hjarnen here, and you do not have 3 items on the side of Renu. He did stop for the QSS along the way. If you can't really call that a 3rd item, because it doesn't really get you closer to the Infinity Edge, which is also crucial for the damage spike here. G2 in a really fantastic position. InFinity were ahead in the macro game early, but G2 making the most of their laning leads and turning them now into big team fight strengths. Perkz though, not going to overstep.
Alright. Just want to get a bit of damage down onto Solid Snake. This will give them full control over the mid lane. And remember, if you force that jungler back, then that means Baron is much easier to secure. And now they'll make their way straight towards it. There's no teleport on top of Relic. There is for Wonder. So he can more than happily just sit in the bot side of the map. And G2, they can just play with InFinity. They can force them into situations they don't want to be.
Perkz to find the engage. You can see the Void Seeker coming out as well. Hjarnen ready to follow up that ultimate if necessary. But they're just poking people down right now, Vedius. And you're right, that Poppy TP being gone feels like it's just going to make it so difficult for an InFinity to play this one safely.
Yeah, Wonder is really strong off in the side lane. 3 items are now finished. Has the stopwatch as well. Could walk towards a G8 4th if he wanted to. And now the Baron has kicked off. InFinity, they have no vision in the pit. And Hjarnen is just melting through it with Jankos.
Paku pushing forward, a lot of vision in the pit now. Most of it disabled, but a control ward will grant them at least a little bit. About 100 gold there for G2 if they want to go clean up all those wards in the pit. They're not going to waste the time, though, instead focusing on getting those back timers. And Betty, I think it's good to highlight the side lane, Flame Horizon at this point, and the 3-item Aatrox is just, feels like it's impossible for the Poppy to deal with, because even though you have so much armor, he just heals so much with the Death Stance.
Yeah, and all InFinity are doing is just buying time for Relic's TP to come back up. Ideally, they don't want to get into a fight before that happens, because G2 could very easily force a 5 versus 4. The big thing to remember as well is that Tristana has completed the Infinity Edge, so the win condition of get Renu to late game has now been reached. The question is, can they get him to pop off in these team fights? Because we're seeing, even against the front line, because of the level advantage of damage that Wonder has, he can just focus the tanks and they'll be fine.
Anchor's now running, looking for that carry. Wonder ready to go over the wall if he gets the opportunity. Arce, though, left in no man's land, is going to have to flash to safety. Relic looking for the disengage, doesn't connect on anyone. Little air there, and that means Poppy might be the first to go. The flash is being burned left and right. Solid Snake now feels like he has to force a fight. Perks, though, locked up into the wall. That's going to be immediately coming out with deep flashes over just to save the mid laner. A hero performance for the Tom Kench, but he may be next in line. Renu uncontested on the backside. Hjarnan as well, and Solid Snake wants to disrupt it. Knock it back into the team, and this is the team fight InFinity wanted. Triple for the Tristana.
And now InFinity can make their way straight towards the Baron. 3 members of G2 are dead, and it comes off the back of a huge misplay from Perks. He flashes into the wall, and that is more than enough to allow Renu to just shred through the G2 lineup, win them the team fight, and this will secure them the big Baron buff.
34 minutes into the game, a 3K deficit for InFinity. That's going to start shrinking real quick with this Baron backing them up. This is the point that you did not want to let InFinity get to. G2 thought they could match here, but it just does not work out.
And keep your eyes on Perks throughout this entire play. Yes, they're burning a lot of flashes from InFinity. G2 feeling very confident with how the game is playing out right now, but here, both him and Wonder are locked up. He then flashes straight into the wall. The Banshee spell gets locked up. Kotopaco can freely deal all this damage. Wadid doing what he can, but he's getting body blocked. And then Renu comes in from behind. Really good flash body slam from Solid Snake as well. This is the kind of team fight that InFinity wanted. And now they walk away with the Baron buff. Gold still in G2's favor. But with a Baron-empowered InFinity, with a 5-0-1 Tristana,
yeah,
I feel like the gold is just a little misleading.
And you see the AP Gragas coming in clutch. Beautiful barrels across the fight. And Vedius, last fight it was 3-item Tristana. She gets a Baron, she gets a triple kill. Now it's 4-item Tristana, and it just gets harder and harder, and G2 have their own damage threat, but you've seen what happens. Wadid can only save one person. G2 have to play these fights perfectly. They can give up one guy with the Devour, but InFinity have a lot of CC here to shut it down, and now the siege begins. Renu, though, locked up briefly. Gonna get knocked back. Wonder, though, gonna be the one in trouble. The ulti immediately coming in. They're gonna try to fight under this tier 2 tower, but Relic is getting deleted. The 3-man knockup coming through, though. He's trying to make it out to safety. Does go down in the end. G2 happy to fight under their tower. InFinity hard over committing on this one, and they're gonna lose 2 members. Kotopaco trying to turn it back. Renu's still in touch, but who is he free to auto attack? The range is not quite enough. That tier 2, the MVP of the exchange, InFinity, far too aggressive.
InFinity, they overcommit underneath the tower, and G2 are able to hold the line. Renu is still alive, though. They want to keep sieging towards this objective. Hjarnan, he doesn't have the LT, but G2, they need to be careful. Don't overchase.
Renu with the rapid fire cannon does lay it down a little bit of poke. Perks ready. Busts out the
Spellbind,
ready to commit for it. Renu now needs to make his way out of this one, backing off. Solid Snake is going to get pulled back, but Wonder may have stayed too long. The GA available, though, means he does get the Resurrect off, and Renu going to commit here, but Perks is right over the wall. There's the ulti coming out. Renu! Sliver of life remaining. Kotopaco goes down before he can use the ulti, and G2 just keep winning these small exchanges.
And now they're looking for the collapse.
Renu, it's going to take a miracle if you want to get at this one. Wonder knows better. He's not going to commit. He's just waiting for the rest of the team to get there. Renu going to look for the reset on the rocket jump, but no, knocked out of the sky. Not going to happen. Perks takes it away from him.
And now the Baron buff is gone for InFinity. Things were looking so good for them. The Tristana win condition, the late game team fighting, that point had been reached. But then they dive underneath the turret. They get a little too greedy. They think they can take more than they can. And G2 successfully punished them. So this all starts off with Wonder. He's the one that gets engaged on by Solid Snake. He gets knocked back into the team. They think that they can burn the GA very quickly. And sure, they do a lot of damage, but look at Relic on the back line. He's tanking up this entire tower with Arce, and they don't have the damage to kill Perks or Hjarnan. They don't have the same threat. They need to be healing for Renu. And as a result, 2 big tanky members end up dropping, and that is how G2 are able to win out the fight. And then Wonder, he goes back to base, he TP's in, and then the rest of this fight ensues.
And Vedius, I think we look at this, and this is, we expected good team fighting coming in from InFinity, but that was so scattered in terms of the call. You saw Tristana backing off while everyone else was going in, and they just looked a little lost there. Can't afford to have those kind of communication breakdowns, and for G2 now very comfortably in the league. Dragons aside, 5K up, 37 minutes into the game. They have their Kai'Sa, they have their late game win condition as well, and it all comes down to execution.
Yes.
But Vedius, you look at the last fight, G2 right now are the ones executing better.
Yeah, it definitely looks like that. Both teams have had favorable fights throughout this game. It's been very close, and you would argue that many didn't expect this. Many predicted a 3-0 for G2 and InFinity. They've really had an impressive performance already in game one. Sets us up nicely for what should be an exciting series, but who will win is still yet to be decided. It all comes down to who plays the team fights better. Baron isn't alive. Elder in a minute and a half. G2, they have priority in mid, so they're setting up the siege.
They need to give this one up. They need to back off. Cannot afford to fight in that funnel against the Syndra. Relic, though, still ready to go in, but Wonder just warding them off. That's the tier 2 down. G2 not going to keep pushing, it looks like. Might just force this wave, and will they commit for more? Luckily, the Gragas barrel's there. The full AP means this one should get shredded through, but Yarnan does not care. He's happy to tank the towers. Make sure the minions are there to debuff. And Medius, G2 looking like they're coming alive here as we get a little bit further in the game. They seemed a little lost in some of those early plays, but now working very well as a team.
Still very close, though. Renyu level 16, Tichanan's level 17. Kai'Sa 4-2 and 4 with 4 items completed as well. I feel like these two AD carries are going to be pivotal as we are now well and truly into the late game. Perks' stuns have also been very important in kind of stopping the engage tools InFinity have, but also Relic. He needs to, his ulti is going to be so crucial, knocking away members like Wonder in these team fights to allow Renyu to better get involved in these team fights is what we need to be seeing from the top laner.
Now he's going to take a lot of damage from Perks, though. Forced out. Stun comes through. Immediate QSS. The fight is going to kick off on the bottom side, though. They see Perks leaving, and now they got their eyes set on Wonder. Yarnan remains untouched. Ulti going to bring him back. Will reset there on the revive. Is he going to be able to make it out of this one? Now going to get knocked down. That's a pick off in the favor of InFinity. But Relic going down in the meantime as Perks is on a rampage. Both teams, 4 members left standing. 2 top laners dead.
The Elder Drake is alive, Dracos. And while G2 do have the push in mid, they don't have their top laner. The Aatrox is such a big threat towards the backline. I don't know if they can deal with Renyu, but look at Perks, he's going the long way around.
Perks has no ulti though, but he does a lot of damage if he can make his way to the backside. Predator now being used, Yanko's threatening. It might just come down to the smite fight. Are they going to be willing to risk it? Perks moving into the backside, but they're going to spot him out. He's left on his lonesome. InFinity pulling back into their own territory. Renyu has to be careful if he gets blocked off here. Yarnan, will he have the aggressive to go in? That's the Dragon going down in favor of InFinity. Could just be everything in the fight to come. They need to kill Renyu if they want to win this one. All on Yarnan. Will he push any further? But there's the Urgot ult right on time on cooldown. Renyu going to delete him. Look for the reset, but no, Yarnan living. Not enough. 3 kills in the favor of InFinity. Elder Dragon as well. A beautiful fight.
And that pick onto Wonder was so crucial for InFinity because in the 4 versus 4, they knew that with the Tristana, they'd be in a much better position to win out on the fight. They also have a huge minion wave up towards the top side of the map, and now, with 3 members dead on the side of G2, InFinity are looking to break into the base.
Perks cancels the TP on the bottom side, though. That is going to be crucial. Kotopaku's still incredibly tanky, and Arce hungry for blood, but he's going to get pulled right back. Kotopaku looking for the 1v1 because Perks has no mana. If he misses another skill shot, he could just go down. Fear Beyond Death, look at that cooldown getting lower and lower and lower. Kotopaku was hungry for blood. Perks, can you outplay this? The tower will offer you safety, but it won't stop you from losing the game. Wonder versus the world in the base right now. Game 1, flash on the Fear Beyond Death. Kotopaku moving back into the tower. Wants to get the outplay, but it doesn't matter, Vedius, because InFinity take game 1.
Tense game between the two teams, and it ultimately came down to a pick onto the 2 top laners. But remember, we were talking throughout this game. Wonder had like 5,000 gold on the enemy top laner. Sure, you can kill Relic. They're fine losing him. That's not where all their gold is. All their gold is on the Tristana and on Kotopaku. Whereas you just lost Wonder. He was your gold lead. And then they still tried to fight for the Infernal. They still tried to make that fight happen. And they end up getting outplayed in InFinity. They get to the late game. They win out on the late game team fights. And they take a game off of G2.
When you can see the communication from G2, they think, hey, they're going to commit to this, we're going to collapse, Perks is going to get the flank, but then Perks is out here all on his lonesome. The rest of his team is over here. They go, so we just got the Infernal Drake. Perks, you go do whatever you want. We're going to kill your team.
You also have no ult and no mana. Yeah. What are we afraid of
And
exactly?
the Urgot has so much cooldown reduction that ult's up like every single fight comes up just in time to kill the Tahm Kench. Yarnan's left in a 1v1, and I thought he was dead instantly. Uses the killer instinct as best he can to shield up, but it's just not enough. It's an incredible back and forth game.
And huge props to InFinity because, again, expectations were that G2 would be the heavy favorites in this series. And already with InFinity having a convincing, well, I say convincing, it was a close game 1. I'll say
back and forth.
It was a close game 1, to be fair. Really sets us up nicely for what should be an exciting series.
Absolutely does. Well, for more on how InFinity won game 1, let's head over to the State Farm analyst desk.
Thank you very much. I don't know about you guys, but I was on the edge of my seat for pretty much the entire game. And I think a lot of what we talked about before the game as was to be, well, each team's strength played out in the end, but it was a bit, it didn't matter. What is my point that I wanted to get at? Because CS difference, yes, Wonder was smashing the lane, Perks was smashing the lane, but it seems to not matter to InFinity and the plan they had in mind.
And even everything we said about the draft just flew out of the window. You know, trade the Bruisers top lane, leave everything open. This game was honestly crazy.
Wow.
And I think that they ran so many risks, and then to win game one is still a statement on the back end of it.
I think this is really interesting to see, like, moving forward in the series, of course, just because, like, the Alistar and the Tristan is a pretty common counter into Kai'Sa lanes because you do have the kill threat as well as the push threat, and all you still scale pretty well. So that worked really well. The rest of the draft, I still have some question marks around. I didn't love giving that stuff up to Wonder because he is a monster and kind of proved it this game.
That's a great point. I want to look at the numbers for the CSD differential because when we entered the mid game, I think we all thought, well, hey, is this going to be a problem for InFinity later? The fact that Wonder is so much up and Perks is so much up, but the answer was no, because where G2 usually is very aggressive in taking those early towers and objectives, InFinity equalized by taking a lot of objectives early and mid, which kept the game even.
And I think the biggest flag here for a G2 fan is the fact that Jankos was 0-0-0 at 20 minutes into this game. And this is a guy that had so much early game power. And whilst he wasn't all that busy, Kotopaco, Solid Snake continued to visit bottom lane. I think they got 4 members down there twice. They were able to break that turret open. That meant that Tristana could just roll around the map and take down all these objectives. And Jankos, on the non-Olaf jungler, didn't have an answer for it.
Yeah, this feels like one of those games where you're like, both fan bases should have a very strong, you know, hope going to game 2, because if you're G2, you're like, well, Jankos did nothing this game. He's much better than that, and he'll be able to actually snowball those CS advantages into turrets. And if you're an InFinity fan, you're saying, hey, we just won a game falling down 50 CS in both solo lanes.
Yeah. Well, as a big question mark, I would maybe say, is it only the Olaf factor for Jankos? Is that the one he feels the most confident? However, before we get to these replays, in the team fights that happened before the one we're going to show, G2 was holding up pretty well, even though there were Mountain Drakes on the side of the other team. They were also catching back up gold-wise, but it didn't seem to be enough. And you always had that tingling feeling of, well, hey, if InFinity beat EDG in team fights while being down 7,000 gold, they must be good at it.
Because every single time G2 navigated a team fight, it was like Perks knocked someone out of a headbutt pulve combo, you know? Wadid uses the full kit of Tahm Kench to be able to save Perks, and you're just like, if one little thing goes wrong, this team fight is going to destroy G2.
They had great team fighting by G2 to make sure they didn't lose against all the engage, as well as the fact that when they did win the team fights, they didn't actually convert it into many objectives.
No.
They didn't get Drakes, they were down turrets the entire game, and it was like, after winning 3 fights in a row, you're like, well, when are they gonna actually get more than just a gold lead?
And I think that's why we're also on the edge of our seat, because we knew InFinity can definitely turn this, and turn it they did. Let's take a look at their 3-0 to get Baron.
And the biggest thing here is, after forcing 3 flashes out of InFinity, they are now caught out of position, and Wadid, you heard them say in the cast, can only save one person, so he tries to save Perks, but at this point, he himself doesn't have a way out, and so this still leads to this big group up and people getting AoE down, and this is exactly what they wanted, where Renyu cannot get focused, and he gets the free hit the entire time.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, when you're a Tristana, you want the fight to start with someone going down and then for the rest of it to just be chaos. And when you have an Alistar, when you have the Gragas being able to dive in there, they're just creating so much of a front line. With Urgot Execute, you're able to get that first reset happening. So I actually quite enjoyed the composition that they were able to put together. I don't think they should give up so many tools to be able to run the composition again, but it did work as it got to the latter stages of the game.
Hey, on the other side, if you're able to win with feeling like you gave up a couple of things, you must be very confident, and they kept that confidence going in the next play. Elder Drake could be the next deciding factor. Of course, 3 dragons on the side of InFinity, and they don't give it up.
Yeah, and the big thing for me in this one is that InFinity didn't play this fight flawlessly. You can see Perks on the back end of this fight is actually going to make himself go They didn't prioritize him. You know, they push away with Did, and Jankos here isn't really with the rest of his team, and it still gets a little bit dicey. You can see Renyu kind of just cancels a couple of auto attacks. There's a big shield that comes out. He nearly falls down still. I mean, that's a team fight that probably should have been cleaner, but they were still able to pick it up.
Definitely the case, and I think that's what a lot of this boils down to, is like G2 fell behind early, had some great team fights to come back, and then InFinity found their own engages, and the entire thing was so back and forth. It was just that they had that Infernal Drake, or the Elder Drake, excuse me, extra win condition, which actually came through.
Hard hard to pick a player of the game, I think, because on the team fight front of InFinity, it's almost hard to say, okay, well, who's carrying the weight? We settled on the MasterCard player of the game being Arce in the bottom lane. Now, I would just like to point out how awesome this story is of this guy. This is a guy that played for Rainbow Seven/Lion for a very long time. He is on the levels of Seiya as a legend in LATAM North, and he comes as the underdog with InFinity to the plains, and now he not only beats EDG Direwolves, gets to the next round, but he gets that first game versus favorite G2. Awesome.
And you have to say that as a shot caller, he did a terrific job in this game where, like, they're going to go towards Baron. No, they push for the end. The creativity of the Hex Flash Alistar to start up these team fights time and time again just meant that G2 really did have to play the flawless game.
But now let's also turn it back on the heads of G2. They are now down 1 game. If it was the old G2, they used to give up first games in a best-of series, but this isn't the old G2. This is a new configuration, Mark. How do they approach game 2?
Come on, Mr. Win Conditions, give it to me.
No one's listening to him. I mean, Wonder at least listened to my Aatrox guide. He had a great game. If he can get those again, great. They are on red side this time. I don't think they'll be the ones wanting to ban the power picks away. We'll see if they do that. And I think Jankos just really needs an early game jungler, whether that's Talia, Olaf, even if it's more scrappy oriented. I know I said I didn't really want this, but if you need to go Camille just to set plays up around your solo laners who I expect to continue winning individually, get some playmaking for them so that they can actually explode their leads.
And InFinity, how did they get to 2-0?
Yeah, I think that you look at that and you say, let's calm the early game down even further, continue to attack the bottom lane, and we're a good team fighting team. Let's continue to team fight.
Well, we are in for a hell of a series. InFinity have drawn first blood against EU's third seed. Stick around after the break to see if G2 can strike back in game 2.